guys? It's Chief here from Chief Live Gaming. Today, making a video talking about the Khorne Daemonkin Codex and heavy support choices. So we're going to discuss heavy support today. I'm not going to sit and read the stat lines and the war gear or anything like that. I'm going to assume you guys have access to that information if you're watching this video. And instead, we're going to cover kind of why I would want to bring each slot over a different one, each option within heavy support, or why I don't like or do like certain options. We're going to talk more in that style today. That being said, this is all based on my personal experience, my local meta, my opinion, more or less. And if you guys have different opinions, feel free to message me, leave me a comment down below. I would love to talk about just different opinions and things regarding my videos. So feel free to do that. And without further ado, let's jump right in. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Chaos Land Raider. That's a heavy support choice, and it's just your basic Chaos Land Raider. Nothing too special. You can add the twin-linked las cannons on the sponsons, which most people do, I find. And if you like Land Raiders and like vehicles, you're going to bring it. You're going to like it. The main thing I want to talk about regarding this is using it to transport possessed. Weird, right? So when you think about a Land Raider, normally you think about putting Terminators in it, or the other obvious choice in this codex are Berserkers, and it's 230 points base. So it's very expensive, very, very expensive for what you get for the Chaos Land Raider. Now, putting Terminators in that just amplifies that problem. You're ending up with such a super, super ultra expensive unit. It's hard to use effectively. It's hard to make it worth its cost. If you put Berserkers in it, kind of end up with a weird... Berserkers aren't amazing, right? They're strong. They're okay, but they're not outrageously strong. So, I don't know. I've just found that putting possessed in the Land Raider, driving them up and treating them like, you know, any other assault vehicle works super, super, super well for the cost. You kind of hit this weird cost-effective barrier. If you want to if you want to bring a Land Raider, try that out. Let me know what you think. I've tried a couple different things, and that seems to work best for me. So that's all I want to touch on, possessed in a Land Raider. Now, the next thing that I want to touch on are the option of a Forge Fiend or Mauler Fiend. And these are, you know, the Forge Fiend is the ranged variety of this chassis, so to speak. And the Mauler Fiend is the more melee-oriented one. Now, I like to bring heavy support in this codex for ranged heavy support. So the more conventional style where you need some big, strong guns in the back. And a Forge Fiend is not great for that. I like some other options for that kind of a style, which I'll get to in a second. So I kind of discount the Forge Fiend myself. However, it can be quite useful. On the flip side, the Mauler Fiend, getting into close combat, is incredibly strong. Mauler Fiends are very good. They're cheap for what they do. You know, they're 130 base, and they can really get the job done. So if you want something that, you know, has It Will Not Die, I think it has It Will Not Die. I really hope it does. And Siege Crawler, Move Through Cover, Fleet, you know, it's just very, very good at getting up there, being a very large threat and a very scary threat to your opponent and making them deal with it. I would take two. If you're going to bring one, bring two, and you'll have a great time. That's all I want to say about Mauler Fiends. Pretty straightforward model. So, next up, we have the Defiler and Soul Grinder. I'm going to lump those together. And you see that I have a Soul Grinder pictured here, and that's for the main reason being that if you're looking for something that falls into like, okay, I need some guns in the back, something that's very strong and forces my opponent to worry about it, use some heavy guns on it. It comes to, you know, kind of a choice between the Defiler and the Soul Grinder. I would pick the Soul Grinder every single time. Now, there's a couple reasons for that. One of the main reasons being is it's just cheaper. The Soul Grinder is 135, Defiler is 200. And the Soul Grinder is front armor and side armor 13 versus 12 on the Defiler. It seems like a no-brainer to me. The Defiler has some more special rules, yes. But for the cost, the Soul Grinder just does the job better, I feel like, if you break it down. At 135 base, 13 armor, that's insane. That is really, really, really good. And the Defiler is also pretty good, but again, Soul Grinder just cheaper for the same role. So I like to bring Soul Grinders. Now, the main choice when you bring a Soul Grinder is his like weapon upgrades. So you can bring the Baleful Torrent, Warp Gaze, or Phlegm Bombardment. And the Phlegm Bombardment is just brutal against Marine equivalent armies, 3-up save armies. And it's such a cheap way to get a large blast AP3 that it's a little bit scary for your opponent. If you can bring 2 Soul Grinders or even 1 against a Marine equivalent opponent, put Phlegm Bombardment on them, they're going to have a bad time. So try it out. I love Phlegm Bombardment. The other 2 options are also great, depending on what you need the Soul Grinder to do. And again, he's more of a hybrid kind of unit. He can get up into close combat and do some damage. Very good at that if you need him to. And, you know, we talked about the Mauler Fiend kind of being just run up and munch things in close combat. The Soul Grinder can do that role less effectively, and he has insane fire support. So he's kind of a dual purpose choice. Good cost, and just honestly, one of my favorite choices for heavy support. Highly recommend the Soul Grinder. Now, let's move on and talk about the Hellbrute. 100 points, comes with a multi-melted Power Fist. You know, you can give him the twin-linked las. You can give him some different options for the Hellbrute weapons, and they're okay. They're not great. They're not awesome. They do what the Soul Grinder does with a less cost for, how do I want to say this eloquently? You pay less for it, and you get a different selection of weapons. So, you know, you're not getting the large blast options, you're not getting the torrent, but you're still getting access to some pretty darn good weapons, especially for Khorne Daemonkin. You're getting, you know, las, multi-melta, that kind of stuff. So if you want a cheap weapons platform for that, great option. Great option. You know, you're going to save some points. In the long run, every 10 or 20 points, you add that up across the spread of your army. You know, you save 10 or 20 points in 5 or 6 different units. All of a sudden, you're looking at a free Hellbrute, basically. So I like to bring Hellbrutes instead of Soul Grinders in smaller games, because like I mentioned, they kind of fit the same role a little bit. So try it out. Again, 1 is good, 2 is better. I always like to think that way with heavy support. Two Hellbrutes, not going to cost you very much, and you're going to get some nice backline fire support, and they're able to run in and get into close combat if necessary. They're not very fast, they're easy to kite, but they can do some aerial denial, some objective denial, stuff like that. Now, the Skull Cannon's up next, and the Skull Cannon is the last thing I'm going to talk about before I get into some like broad topics. And really, I like the Skull Cannon. Ignores cover, dread skulls, which means, if you're unfamiliar, anything hit by this Skull Cannon, you place a little marker, and then anything else that charges a model with the dread skulls marker on it ignores the penalty for charging through difficult terrain. So awesome for a Khorne Daemonkin army that's really heavy in demons. So if you're fielding a ton of Bloodletters, a ton of Blood Crushers, stuff like that, a lot of demons, what are they not? They don't have assault grenades. They're lacking assault grenades. So the Skull Cannon makes up for that. It helps you to negate that that a little bit of a handicap by bringing a demon heavy list. So in that situation, maybe I would want to bring a Skull Cannon. Very fun chariot to bring. Highly recommend you at least try it out. But again, myself, I kind of end up bringing a Soul Grinder with Phlegm Bombardment if I want something with a large blast, unless I'm bringing a demon heavy list. So that's when I would recommend the Skull Cannon, demon heavy. Help your demons get into combat and be effective that way. So let's do a little recap. When you're trying to pick what heavy supports you want to bring in a combined arms detachment, you should try to look at the overall theme and style of your list. So Khorne Daemonkin is thankfully pretty straightforward. A lot of the times, no matter what list you build, no matter what combination of units you bring, you're going to have one plan. You're going to want to get into close combat, you're going to want to charge early and often, and do as much damage as possible. So it makes your choices a little bit easier for heavy support because you're looking to complement that style. That being said, bringing some long-range fire support is never a mistake. I don't think it's ever a bad idea, unless you're playing like ultra low points, you know, maybe 750 or something like that, really small skirmish style games. Then you can look to drop out some heavy support options, but really you want to try to bring some fire support because assault is so unreliable now. The assault phase is very difficult to utilize, let's put it that way. So having some fire support to offset that is great. And my personal favorite of all the choices are Soul Grinders, for the reasons that I stated earlier. A lot of good options, very versatile unit. Really, really powerful heavy support. That 5-up invuln on a 13 armor platform is just amazing. Try it out and just see what you think. So if you're looking at this from a formation standpoint, you're looking at bringing in heavy support as war engines. So you can add as many as you, well, you can add up to 8 total, I think, is the restriction. So like, you know, you could bring 7 Soul Grinders with the Slaughter Cult if you wanted. I'm pretty sure that's a legal list. You kind of like to sprinkle them in to get to your points total. That's generally what I end up doing. And again, if you need like 150 points, grab a Soul Grinder with a Phlegm Bombardment or a different upgrade somewhere in there. If you only have a little bit of wiggle room, maybe try a Hellbrute. And if you are playing an army with a lot of Blood Crushers or something like that, really fast 12-inch moving army, a lot of bikes, bring that Mauler Fiend, try it out. Awesome, awesome model. So I would love to hear your guys' your take on my discussion here. Please feel free to leave me a comment. You can send me a private message, email, anything you want. Get in touch with me. Let's talk. I love discussing tactics and loadouts and lists for 40K. It's one of my favorite things to do. So leave me a message, leave me a comment. We'll go from there. Thanks a lot to all my supporters, all my subscribers, my patrons, donators, anybody that's purchased from my eBay or Etsy store. You guys are awesome. Your support means very much to me and really helps me out. Even if you're just watching this video, thank you so much for sticking around. I appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the next video. All right, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye now.